MH370.
Flight 370.
Flight MH370.
The disappearance of Flight MH370 is one of the biggest mysteries in modern aviation history.
Hello everyone and welcome to another video. It was a shocking moment for the world when Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared with 239 people on board. Among the passengers were 4 Americans. The plane vanished from radar and for 17 minutes no one knew where it had gone. People started asking serious questions. How could such a large aircraft just vanish? How could officials lose track of it? Investigations later showed that someone inside the cockpit may have changed the plane's route on purpose. The aircraft was guided to specific points before disappearing. No one knows why or where it eventually went. Authorities believe all the passengers and crew lost their lives. Families were told to prepare for the worst. This event has become one of the biggest mysteries in aviation history. What happened to Flight MH370? On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777, took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It was heading to Beijing, China. There were 239 people on board, including both passengers and crew members. At first, everything seemed normal. The plane took off and climbed to its cruising altitude, but soon after, something strange happened. The aircraft made an unexpected turn and flew west instead of continuing north toward China. This change in direction was not planned and was far off the original flight path. Air traffic controllers tried to reach the plane when it disappeared from radar screens, but they got no reply. For a while, no one knew what was happening. Later, military radar picked up the aircraft again. It was flying across the Malay Peninsula and heading into the Andaman Sea. This was nowhere near where it was supposed to be. It appeared that the plane was still flying, even after communication systems were turned off. Although the plane was no longer talking to air traffic control, it was still sending signals called satellite pings. These automatic signals were sent to a satellite for several hours after the aircraft had disappeared. These pings showed that the plane might have flown for about 6 more hours before vanishing for good, likely somewhere over the southern Indian Ocean. More information came in as investigations continued. The plane definitely turned around and flew back over Malaysia in a westerly direction. After that, it changed course again and headed northwest. This wasn't a small mistake. It was a major change in direction. Search teams from many countries began looking for the aircraft. At first, they searched the South China Sea, thinking the plane might have crashed there. But after experts studied the satellite data more closely, the search was moved to the southern Indian Ocean. That's where the plane seemed to have flown based on its final signals. A global search begins. The search operation turned into one of the biggest and most expensive in history. Ships, planes, submarines, and drones from different countries took part. They searched thousands of square kilometers of ocean. But despite all the efforts, nothing was found for a long time. The families of those on board were heartbroken. They had no answers. They didn't know if their loved ones were alive or dead. The uncertainty made their grief even worse. The first clues. In 2015, over a year after the plane disappeared, a piece of debris from MH370 washed up on the island of Réunion, a French territory in the Indian Ocean. This was the first real piece of evidence confirming that the plane had crashed into the ocean. After that, more pieces of the aircraft were found on beaches in places like Mozambique, Madagascar, and other parts of the western Indian Ocean. These included parts of the wings and other airplane components. These discoveries helped investigators confirm that the plane had broken up and fallen into the sea. However, the exact crash site was still unknown, and most of the wreckage, including the black boxes, remained missing. What could have happened? Over the years, many theories have been suggested in an attempt to explain what might have happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. One widely discussed possibility is that the plane experienced a mechanical or technical failure. This could have led to the loss of control over the aircraft or caused a breakdown in communication with air traffic control, ultimately leading to the crash. Another theory is that the aircraft may have been hijacked. Some experts believe that someone on board, either a passenger or possibly even the pilot, could have taken control of the plane. This idea is supported by the fact that the aircraft made a sudden and deliberate turn from its planned route, and its communication systems were manually switched off, suggesting intentional interference. A more controversial theory suggests that the pilot may have purposely crashed the plane as an act of suicide. However, There is no solid or confirmed evidence to support this claim, and it remains only speculation. Another idea proposes that a fire or a sudden drop in cabin pressure caused everyone on board to lose consciousness. In such a case, the plane could have continued flying on autopilot for several hours until it ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. Additionally, the possibility of a terrorist attack has also been considered, although no terrorist organization has ever claimed responsibility for the disappearance of the flight. Despite all these theories, no single explanation has been proven. The lack of conclusive evidence has left investigators, experts, and families of the victims without clear answers. As a result, the disappearance of MH370 continues to be one of the most baffling and mysterious air disasters in modern history, with many questions still left unanswered. Why was the search so difficult? One of the biggest challenges in finding MH370 was that no one knew exactly where to look. The plane flew for hours after losing contact, and the ocean it likely crashed into is enormous and deep. The seafloor in that area is rugged and hard to scan. Also, ocean currents may have carried debris thousands of kilometers from the crash site, making it even harder to trace back to the original location. Modern aircraft usually have tracking systems and black boxes that record flight data and cockpit voices. These tools are very helpful in crash investigations, but in this case, those boxes were never found, so the key pieces of information about the final moments of MH370 remain unknown. After several years of searching and spending hundreds of millions of dollars, the official search was suspended in 2017. Another search by a private company in 2018 also failed to find the plane. While some people still hope for answers, no active searches are currently going on. After the incident, both airlines and aviation authorities around the world recognized the need for better technology and systems that could track planes more accurately, especially when flying over remote areas like oceans where radar coverage is limited or non-existent. One of the major improvements was the increased use of satellites to keep track of aircraft positions in real time. These satellite-based systems allow planes to be monitored continuously, making it easier to respond quickly if something goes wrong. There have also been discussions about redesigning flight data recorders, commonly known as black boxes. By improving communication and tracking systems, the aviation industry hopes to ensure that no plane will ever disappear without a trace again. Even today, over a decade later, the disappearance of MH370 remains unsolved. While small pieces of the plane have been found, the main wreckage, including the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, has never been recovered. Without them, we may never fully understand what happened during those final hours. Hope you liked the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such content.